What's up, guys? It's Virginia Lowman here at the New York Daily News. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're in the studio with Toby Schmitz, who is the star of The Black Sails. He plays Captain Calico Jack, or not Captain, but Pirate Calico Jack.
He's a captain.
He is a captain.
You got that right. He didn't start out as one, but he is now, Virginia.
Okay, and we're entering season 4,
That's right.
which is really exciting. It's premiering this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Starz, so make sure that you tune in. So I want to talk to you, obviously, about Captain Jack.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of already like an iconic name, but I've lots of questions about him. He's got like a very eclectic style, but like still very like a little bit rugged, but then also very like masterfully put together, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, the sideburns. He's just, I'm obsessed with him. He's incredible.
One of the things we do know, or think we know about the real Jack Rackham, was that he had a bit of a flair to him. That he stood out from the other pirates at the time because of what he wore, calico being a fairly sort of rare fabric at the time. And so the creators of the show and importantly, like the designers of the show really ran with that and said, let's give him a sort of, you know, a rock and roll iconic look. And the kind of the mood boards that they had up in the costume department at the very beginning of this process had sort of, you know, Hendrix and Bowie and all sorts of kind of real rock icons.
Which you can see when you look at him.
Yeah.
I would definitely see a little Bowie in him.
That's right.
The hair,
Exactly.
the like sort of finesse.
That's right, and a slight kind of, sort of flock of seagulls thing going on with his mullet and so on.
Even the jewelry.
Yeah.
Lots of like studs and metallics.
That's it. He's got his own, he's got a sense of style and a kind of an iconic, unique one. And as the show has gone on and he's become more successful as a pirate and less scrappy and richer, to the point where he's, you know, literally sitting on a pile of gold at the beginning of the 3rd season, it's given the creators and the designers even more license to go flamboyant. You know, I had a sort of almost a Sergeant Pepper's kind of coat with tassels on at some point, and it's been so much fun.
Gorgeous coat, by the way.
It's been a dream. You know, each episode, what's my costume? It does half the work for me.
For sure. Speaking of the costume doing half the work for you, what was that process like preparing for this role? I mean, obviously it's set in a completely different time, but it does feel very modern.
Sure.
So how did you prepare for this role, and like what elements did you learn from Captain Jack?
Sure. Well, in terms of prep, there's only so much pirate reading you can do.
Right.
I mean, we all read Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island.
I was going to ask, did you read it?
Because this is sort of in some way an origin story to that book. Set 20 years.
The show is based on that, by the way.
Yeah, it's set 20 years before the events of Treasure Island. And then I read the sort of scraps of info that we have about Rackham himself. And then after that, it was a really fun, imaginative process. What kind of cat is this guy? And the creators encouraged me to think of him as a sort of a Wall Street trader equivalent, that he really sort of liked chasing the deal and was kind of really turned on by the pursuit of profit. And
very pirate-esque.
Yeah, and when we first meet him, especially in the first few episodes, he belongs to a pretty badass crew, led by Zach McGowan playing Captain Charles Vane. And so, you know, ostensibly they're kind of the real badass rock and rollers on this island. And so that informed a lot of how I started playing him. I knew that he was part of a pretty punk outfit and had a rep already.
Right.
And that he was a bit of a smart ass, and that, you know, he had a way with words. They were all things that I already knew as I stepped into his boots.
Right.
And after that, I just started having fun. And as each episode came along, I learnt more about him myself.
Yeah, and you sort of stepped deeper into the character with each episode. In an interview, I read that you described him as a psychological terrorist at one point. Can you expand upon that?
Sure. Well, whenever Jack has the opportunity to turn a profit or to get a foot up in this world, he really likes getting into the head of the other person and sort of terrorizing them a bit, finding their Achilles heel, their weakness, and really manipulating it. And, you know, in one of the first episodes, you know, he sits down opposite a slightly older pirate, not much older, but goes on about how old he is, how his knees are going to give out at some point, you know. Or if he's opposite the table from someone who's just as greedy as he is, he'll play on their greed. So he doesn't pull out his sword quickly like some of the other characters. What he does like doing is getting nice and close.
He wades in it.
And then sort of getting just up in there and sort of having fun with it. And
sure.
It often works in his favour.
Okay, that sparked 2 more questions. Your relationship with Vane.
Yeah.
So what can we expect from Jack in particular this coming season? Because obviously there's a little...
Sure.
I don't want to give it away.
Sure. Look, Jack has lots... on his plate when we first meet him this season. He's mourning the loss of his old friend and captain.
Comrade.
Yeah, and comrade, that's right. And who'd really stuck his neck out for Jack.
Right.
And now I think Jack feels beholden to stick his neck out for his old chum. And also that feeling that infiltrates a lot of drama and tragedies, and that's that need for revenge.
Yeah.
We all know it can't lead you to good places, revenge. It's
Right.
something you want to try and shrug
It's a cancer.
off. That's right, it
Feeds
is.
on you.
But all the great tragedies like Macbeth and so
Yes.
on are steeped in this sense that someone cannot help but want to get back
Yes.
what was taken from them, or get back
There's
at the
a
people who
romance
took it.
about that.
There is. There's something attractive. We can
A
all
terrible
feel it.
romance, but a romance nonetheless.
That's it. It's got another edge to it. We know it in our hearts. And so that's what we find Jack battling with, a deep sense of the need for revenge
Okay.
when we find him.
I want to talk a little bit more about revenge, but then also just this sort of narrative of greed and power struggle that sort of permeates the show as a whole. Can you expand on how the show sort of mirrors reality in that sense?
Yeah, I think all the main players in this show live outside the law and are trying to create their own new society.
Yeah.
A fledgling democracy even, outside of sort of the autocratic rule of the British Empire at the time. America itself is just starting at the same time. The War of Independence isn't far around the corner from when this show is set. And in a way, Zach McGowan was always fond of saying that kind of his character was the first American,
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of ideas. There's a fledgling democracy at play here. And so all these characters have a chance to put their stamp on what they think the world should look like.
Right.
And sure enough, all the old human problems come into play.
Yeah.
Some of them are greedier than others. Some of them have a world vision about how the new world should look like that run completely opposite to how other people think it should.
Right.
Jack fits into all of that, I think, by being one of simply the more greedy ones.
Okay.
Jack is along for the fun rock and roll ride of it. I think he really likes being a pirate because he actually gets his kicks out of it. He's got a sense of injustice about things that were done to him in his youth, sure, by the system back in England. But I think he's having a great time, and he's really out for profit and, most importantly, the thrill of the chase. He also happens to have a really cool and beloved sidekick by his side, Anne Bonny, and they love each other, know. So he does have a kind of a repository for humane feelings in his woman.
Yeah.
I think, therefore, allowing him to be all the more sort of cunning and selfish to the rest of the world.
Yes.
So some of these characters are out to shape this new democracy with big ideas, and I think Jack is a far more a short-term, in it for the chase kind of guy.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you think, or maybe not who, because that might be a little damning, but...
I'm happy to damn. Let's do it.
I mean, could you put together personalities that you think would represent Jack in today's world?
Just because
I could see him as sort of like the Wolf of Wall Street, if you will.
I think that's a really good starting point.
Yeah.
DiCaprio's character, one of those kind of guys who can be incredibly charming and urbane and stylish.
And biting.
All those things, yeah. But at the end of the day, if you really sat them down with a good shrink and said, what are you after?
Yeah.
They may not know because they've already got the millions. So why are you still doing it?
They're just sort of lost and again, that's sort of like down for the chase sort of feel.
That's it. And maybe hedonism is the word. They're in it for the instant gratification of owning things, chasing things that they don't own yet.
Yeah.
We all know guys like that and girls like that. And maybe we all harbour a little bit of that in ourselves.
For sure.
That I just want the new thing.
Yeah.
The FOMO.
Yeah. Well, for sure, the FOMO. That's so relevant. I also just sort of think, you see yourself in Jack, which sometimes can be a little bit scary, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I really like about the show is that it really is full-bodied. I mean, there's the romance, there's the thrill of the chase, but then also just the sort of like ugly and necessary parts of humanity.
Yeah,
almost,
that's it.
That,
it's all very nice to say, let's go create a new society and shrug off the laws of the old one, but it comes down to the nitty-gritty of how's this place going to work?
Right. Who's going to do the dirty work?
Yeah, that's right. Where do you put criminals?
Yeah.
What is criminal behaviour? Where does one draw a line? all those are really kind of heady concepts. And it's amazing that this show can blend that with just good old-fashioned, excitement and incredible.
Starz is really good at that, though.
Yeah.
Just the overall drama in general.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, that's a great segue into my next question. The show is shot in South Africa. What has it been like filming this? I mean, watching it as a viewer, like I said, it's very intense. Like, everything is, there's lots of horses and just, it's so emotionally wrought and very visual.
It's as exciting as you could imagine it, and then some. The drama alone, as you suggested, is fascinating and fun enough, If it was just that, just people sitting in a room or walking down the street with all the skullduggery and politics that's involved would be fantastic, and I'd be honoured as an actor to do it.
Yeah.
The fact that there are carriage chases and huge tall pirate ships to climb up the side of, and cannons going off, and horse chases, and so on, and so on, and so on. It's mind-blowing, Virginia. I didn't quite believe it on the first day of shooting that it was happening. I mean, they built an entire pirate town. Not a kind of a set with cheating it, go around a corner and then we'll put up something else like the Truman Show. It was a shot. It was a town, and you step out of the brothel and you walk across the street into the tavern, and there's no shooting in a studio,
Oh my
and there's 100 pirates in the tavern, and you go outside and there's geese and oxen and
That's very
horses.
old Hollywood, sort of
is.
like Cleopatra, the original
Absolutely.
Cleopatra.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And I got a real sense of that, and it makes it far easier to act. I couldn't even see the camera, especially with my eyesight. This is just 100. I'm in the pirate town. I better have my wits about me. So that was exciting day one, and never stopped being exciting, because one of the things the creators insisted on this show was that they needed to keep upping the quality, the excitement, the drama.
Which I think it has. It's done that very successfully.
That's right. So to the point where in season 3, I'm in a stagecoach chase, with 6 horses pulling it, and then horses coming up the rear and jumping on, and they're trying to do it all in one shot.
Yeah.
So
were there like some mishaps or moments of like, how am I doing this right now? Or is this covered by my insurance policy? Like,
there was a couple of them. I have to admit, my most scary moments were in the sword fights.
Okay.
The decks of those ships got really slippery because they look better when they're wet.
Right.
For the cameras, it was just if they'd been sailing
it's
at
also
sea,
accurate.
Yeah, that's right. A bit of spray.
Ship should be a little wet.
But that's it. You'd rehearse these sword fights for weeks, with plastic swords, and get better and better and better at it, and get more detail. And then on the day, they change a couple of moves.
Okay.
And suddenly you've got like big heeled pirate boots on. Surely the most ineffective things to sword fight in.
Oh gosh.
And then the ship's, maybe rocking a little bit.
Right,
and they go,
for accuracy.
Let's hose down the deck, and you go, okay, now I'm scared.
How can I do this?
Better swap out the plastic swords for the metal ones. Okay, here we go.
Oh my gosh. I would literally just like dip and dive and then run off. Thanks guys, this was great.
That was really cool. That's it. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, expand a little bit about, I don't know, like, is this where you expected your acting career taking you? Like, this is, you're not even, it's like a whole other world.
It is a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be sane of me and right of me to not expect it to ever happen again. Okay. Luke Arnold, who's the other Australian in the cast who plays Long John Silver, was constantly saying that. He was always saying, Tobes, just remember, this is probably never going to happen again.
Yeah.
A big TV show playing a famous pirate. You'd be wild to think it would ever happen to you. So I was very conscious of that while we were shooting it, to make sure that I remembered it, to make sure that I enjoyed it. Yeah, that's right. Present's the word. To take it all in, to remember it all, to tell my kids, to just enjoy it while it was happening.
Yeah.
But I never expected it to happen. The auditioning process was interesting. They were casting internationally for it. And I remember saying to my agent, I want to test for the pirate thing.
And what did he say?
Well, they were
Tobes,
it's really butch, man. I was like, just give me a test for the pirate thing.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I tested for one of the really butch pirates. And then they came along and said, look, there's a slightly less butch pirate that we're interested in you having a go at. And I couldn't believe it. And there was the talky, urbane Jack on the page. And I went, oh, please, I know how to do this guy.
Yeah.
And it all worked out. But yeah, I never expected the audition to come along. I never expected the part to come along, for it to go for 4 years, to have so much fun, and to be here talking to you.
It's a lot. Oh, well, I'm so happy that you're excited about talking to me. That's an honor. I want to talk about how that sort of playing this character has influenced your acting process. What do you think you're going to take from this experience into your next experience?
I think that any bit of filming one gets to do is helps your learning curve.
Yeah.
Even bad stuff, even kind of strange soap,
Yeah.
you learn how to do it. You learn how
Yeah.
to earn that kind of paycheck. On this show, on a slightly boring technical level, I now know how to do walk and talks with 100 pirates in the street and cameras whizzing past, and how to pull out a sword and not look too scared on camera,
Right.
those kind of things. But I think after 4 years of doing a lot of on-screen stuff on this show, I'm more, this is probably still in the slightly more boring category, but I'm more confident as a screen actor. I feel I can make bolder choices. I feel less scared of making comic choices on screen, or
well, that's important. I mean, in your field,
less scared of looking ugly. You know, no one looks that hot when they're actually fighting for their life.
I mean, I love Jack. I think he's pretty great, and you guys, I'm sure, think the same.
Yeah,
he's pretty great.
All those kind of things are great to add to your kit bag as an actor. And I mean, some of the dialogue in this show as well is dense.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have sentences that ran for an entire paragraph, written with a tip of the hat to how people actually spoke back then, full of rhetoric and metaphor. And you start with an example, and your point isn't made until you get to the end of the paragraph. That's lovely to learn how to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It happens more on stage than screen. It's lovely to learn how to do that with the pressure of a crew of 100 looking at you as well.
And knowing that you'd have to do a second take and everyone would be upset with you.
That's right, yeah.
If I am not mistaken, this is its 4th and final season.
That's right.
What is that like, sort of approaching the final season of what has been sort of like an epic journey for you?
I think it was probably beneficial to us that we weren't aware that it was the last season while we were filming it. I think emotion might have come into it. We were aware that maybe it was on the cards, that they might be wrapping it up, but just how these things shoot, they couldn't quite be certain whether it was or not.
Right.
And I think that was beneficial. I think I definitely would have started trying to cram a few things in there. Like, I must get this look. I can't remember if I did my right eyebrow. I better get that in before they call cut.
Right.
But we found out very close to the end of the whole process that it was the end. And they did wonderful things for the end of the last season.
Okay.
Things tie up in a beautiful way, in a very satisfactory way.
Okay.
And sad was the first thing.
For sure.
I mean, everyone got pretty exhausted by the end of each of these seasons, so there was a kind of a sense of, okay, well, I'll let that sink in. And sure enough, a couple of months after we'd wrapped, and sure enough, as November rolled around, which was always the time when we'd all meet up back in South Africa, there was a real sense of sadness because 4 years...
We've grown together.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got to wrap it up, but I do have 2 more questions
Please,
for you.
hit me. Let's go.
Okay. Obviously, we're in New York,
Yeah.
so I have to ask, like, is there anything that you absolutely must do when you come here? Now, granted, you're here for a while because you're working on a play.
Yeah.
But when you first arrived, was there something that you're like, I've got to go to these places?
It's about the shopping here. This time for me, I came with 2 empty suitcases.
Oh gosh, you're
and
like
they're
ready
already
to head
full.
back.
I'm in
with
a lot
full.
of trouble. It's about
I'm sure you've got lots of requests that they're like, make sure you get these things for me before you come back home.
No, not taking any orders. It's all about buying myself really cool kicks and jackets, to be quite honest.
That's important. Kick game has to be on point.
That's it. Look, I'd see a lot more shows if I could, but I'm doing one myself, and so it kind of nixes that opportunity. But yeah, the shopping and the eating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there one particular food that you think sort of, if New York was a dish, what would New York be?
Come on, a slice of Joe's pizza.
Okay. I was going to say, it's got to be pizza. Come on. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Oh, I'm so glad that you enjoyed the interview. This was so much fun. And make sure that you catch Starz on the 29th when it airs for the 4th and final season on Starz at 9 p.m.
This Sunday.
Yes, this Sunday. So tune in. Block it off on your calendar.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. Yeah,
Truly.
I enjoyed it.